This is a frame from Seven, David Fincher's film from 1995. This is the same frame from the same film. And so is this and this. 4 versions of the same shot, same movie, same scene, same title on the box. But look at them. The color is different, the grain is different. In one of them, there's something in the frame that doesn't exist in the others. So here's the question this video is about. If I asked you which one of these is Seven,
What kind of fucking question is that?
which one would you pick? The honest answer is that there isn't one.
When a person is insane, as you clearly are,
And that should bother us more than it does. Because this isn't a story about a remaster looking nicer or one version looking nicer. It's about how a film can be changed years after we fell in love with it. And how the new version doesn't just sit next to the old one, it replaces it. Until the version you grew up with is the one that looks wrong. This is about what we lose when we make old films look better than they ever did. To understand what's being changed, we have to first ask a strange question. What is a film actually? Not the story, not the plot, but the thing itself, the object. Especially when we're talking about film cinema, not digital cinema. Well, a film begins as a light hitting a strip of celluloid, what's called the original camera negative. There's a chemical reaction there. Millions of tiny silver crystals react into the world in front of the camera in one specific moment that actually happened. The French critic André Bazin had a word for this. He called the photographic image a kind of imprint, a trace, like a fingerprint or a death mask. The camera doesn't interpret the world, it records it automatically. And that automatic recording is what gives the image its strange authority. We trust it because we know something was really there. And here's the part that matters for everything that follows. That trace isn't only that what's in the frame, it's also how it was recorded. The grain, the contrast, the color, the texture of the film stock itself. These aren't flaws sitting on top of the movie, they are the movie. They're the fingerprint of the moment it was made. So when we change the texture years later, we're not actually cleaning up a flaw, we are rewriting that fingerprint. And one more thing before we look at examples later, there's a difference between a negative and a print. Because you and pretty much anyone can never actually see the negative. What played in cinemas was a print, a copy struck from the negative, sent out to theaters, run through projectors hundreds of times. Scratched, worn, slightly faded with every screening. So when I show you a scan, specifically a 35mm scan print of Seven, I'm not showing you the pristine source. I'm showing you something closer to what an audience actually saw in a theater in 1995, with all that wear and tear that comes with it. So it's not the perfect version. For most of home video's history, there was a simple promise. Wait a little longer and technology will bring you closer to the film. It started with VHS, which was blurry and washed out. Then there came the DVD, which was sharper and cleaner, and for the first time people started noticing the difference between one edition and another. Then Blu-ray, and this is the important one, because for the first time you could see the film at home almost the way it looked in a cinema. And of course now we have 4K, which is where something breaks. Because the quality now is enough to capture everything the film actually contains, and so the distance between the format and the film closes. And if you can't get any closer to the source, what do you, as a studio, sell next?
What do? You get another brilliant idea. A special idea.
You get the brilliant idea of selling something better than the film itself.
Fuck the clients.
You start acting as if the grain that was always there becomes noise to remove, or that the contrast becomes something you can now balance. You can basically say that the image becomes something you can now finally clean. And that is when the film stops being treated as a record of something that happened and starts being treated as a draft, something unfinished, something that can always be improved. So now let's look at two examples. The first is just a field. Watch the color. The 35mm print is washed out, faded. The DVD is warm, golden, heavy. The Blu-ray is quite neutral and quite a natural looking frame. And the 4K pulls back and adds this weird green tone. 4 different skies, 4 different moods, same shot. But look at the 2025 version more closely. Here in the middle of the frame. Those are tumbleweeds. A few of them. They do not exist in any other version. They were never filmed. They were added digitally in 2025. And of course, this isn't color, this isn't texture, this is content that was never there. And there's a line in restoration ethics that says that restoration must stop at the point where conjecture begins. So, adding those tumbleweeds to a field is the clearest possible example of crossing that line. And with that being said, let's look at another shot. A dark room, a body, and a man standing in the doorway. And here's what's strange. The 4 versions don't just differ in detail, but they disagree about what the scene even is. The Blu-ray is almost pitch black. You can barely make out the man behind there. A painting on the wall is swallowed completely by shadow. The DVD does the opposite. It lifts the black levels, it floods the room with light, and you can see the man smile, and we can almost discern what's in that painting. While the 4K sits somewhere in between, being, as you know, clean and quite precise. And what we're talking about here traces back to one decision made in 1995 in a lab. And basically, the way the movie was set out to look then now comes out in 4 completely different ways. So, which is the correct one? I cannot tell you, because I guess neither can anyone else tell you with certainty, since David Fincher did work on all of these 4 versions, or at least the DVD, the Blu-ray, and the 4K. But with all of them, we are seeing that we are just trying to approximate what I guess isn't accessible to any of us anymore. So this is where the problem gets quite complicated, I guess. And I guess it's also time to talk about the dangers about what's happening here. So what's the real danger here? The originals don't disappear. There are archivists, collectors, and people storing thousands of films on their hard drives. They keep arguing on forums about which transfer is correct and why. So in the short term, the old versions are safe. What worries me is something else. Not that we will lose the originals, but that we will forget why they mattered. That the understanding basically will invert. Picture a kid somewhere who loves movies. Their first 7 is the 2025 version, the clean one. For them, that is 7. That's just what the film looks like. And one day, by accident, they stumble on an older version. The grain, the texture, the way it looked in 1995. And their reaction won't be, oh, this is the original. It will be something like, oh, why does this look so bad? And here's the part that unsettles me most. You might think the solution is simple. Just keep both versions available. Let people choose. But imagine we had both versions of a film side by side. One with grain, one without. Sounds fair. But if nobody understands what grain even is anymore, why it's there, what the photochemical trace Bazan was talking about means, why the version with grain is the real one, then who picks that one? Nobody. They'll pick the clean one, the smooth one, the beautiful one, because it looks better, and nobody ever told them why it shouldn't. The problem isn't just archiving films, it's keeping alive the understanding of why one version is more than just an older file. The Russian filmmaker Andrei Tarkovsky once said something about what cinema actually is. He said that, for the first time in the history of culture, man had found a way to take a direct imprint of time. Not a direct representation of it, not a story about it, but an imprint. Just like the way a fingerprint is an imprint of something which existed. It's the same thing that Bazan was saying about photography, but pushed further. And basically, we're talking about time that was captured once, the way it was, with its grain, its limits, everything it carried from the moment it was made. And that's exactly where its value is. An imprint you retouch stops being an imprint. It becomes a drawing that resembles one. So the question I'm left with isn't whether we'll keep these films, because we will. In metal cans, on discs, in the cloud, somewhere they will survive. The question is whether we'll still know why they were worth keeping the way they were, and not the way we slowly came to believe looked better. Because a film can be stored forever, but the reason its trace matters, that can't be stored. It can only be passed on.